Oh man, oh man. So is tonight the night, Rod?
Sure. Why not?
Man, for
Why not? Why not?
everybody's
Let's go.
well-being. Let me start this up, man, because I actually got to see Cade and Jalen Duren and those guys at the Motor City Cruise game last night. Man, the Crews are looking good. They're looking really, really good. Jamel McMillan, son of a longtime NBA player and NBA coach, Nate McMillan, and he kind of comes from the Monty Williams coaching tree as well. They all have similar philosophies, and they've been able to really stock that Motor City Cruise team up with some talent. And it's fun, man. Just being down in that Wayne State area. We've talked about it before. The food, it's kind of festive in that area. You got the students down there. You got the professionals down there. And it was a lot of people out to see one Mr. Amani Bates, including Jalen Duren, his college teammate. It was a good night overall, but you could tell the weight is on those guys, man. And I'm glad that it still bothers them. And Monty Williams talked about it, but we're gonna get into some stuff. So let's get this thing started, bro. What up, though, people? It's your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid. You're rocking out with the Woodward Pistons podcast on the Woodward Sports Network. I actually just hopped off the show with Mr. Jeff Iyer-Frady of the Morning Woodward Show. So as always, you guys tap in with them every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. And you guys know what's up now. We got to get the legend here, Mr. Rod Beard, the chief. Drum rolled in. Hey, yo! Shout out and welcome to the legend Detroit News, Rod Beard. Brother, good morning, and how are you doing?
Doing well. It's a Wednesday, so we know what's up now. It's a Wednesday, so we got this to go. We got some good talk. Some NBA and Pistons talk to go.
I'm ready. I got to go to the last two practices. I'm gonna be a little late going to the game tonight. They got me on the desk with the Woodward heavyweights, so definitely tap in tonight, 5 to 7. But man, oh man, oh man, I'm wondering, and I really want to say that this is the night that they get that dub. But Rod, I want you to take it away with Rod's thoughts first.
We touched on it a little bit last week, and it's about the in-season tournament, and it's the mood is just not there for me for this. And they promoted the heck out of this thing to try to make it mean something, and this is supposed to be. But if this was the NBA playoffs and you got to the semifinals, you would be able to name the 4 teams that are in the semi. I can't tell. I know the Lakers won last night because I watched, and Milwaukee. Indiana, and the 4th team, I mean, Pelicans. I do know that, Pelicans. But it wouldn't be that for the playoffs, that you would know those 4 teams because you have been following along. And who's in which pod or which group is just all over the place for me. And I like the idea that they just didn't keep it in divisions, that they tried to mix it up. But it's just a lot to keep track of. And it's just not, it didn't have the sticky factor for me of, all right, I know who's in Group A. Okay, so real quick, who was in the Pistons group?
The Pistons and
exactly. So it I would like for it to have some rivalry or something
some
to
type
it.
of historical context, man. Like
right where you could name off and say, boom, all right, I know who the 4 teams in this group are. Boom, 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 boom. And you should be able to do it that way. So it's not like Celtics, Lakers. It's not like that. But there should be something, at least 2 teams in there that just really don't like each other, where you can have some competitive balance and make that work. But yeah, I mean, the Pacers, like for real, Pacers are playing well, and Tyrese Halliburton had an amazing game the other day. But I think they wanted Boston. They would have loved to have had Boston, let's say Milwaukee, the Lakers, and whoever else. But New Orleans, so there's still some tinkering they got to do with that thing and make it where when the games are. I guess they tried to do Tuesdays and Fridays, but you play a couple of games and then you forget that they are even doing that thing. So can it be 2 kind of boxed in weeks and say all of these games are the in-season tournament? Because if you play you got to put a star by it, and remember, this is an in-season tournament game,
Yeah.
and this one isn't. Tell me it's in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and all kind of condensed together, and then I'll maybe buy in a little bit more, because I know all of these games are together and clustered, and that it means something that way. But yeah, once you tell me this game isn't, this game is, then they're not going to play another one in the in-season tournament for another 3 or 4 days. Well, yeah, I've forgotten about it already by that point.
Bro, you know what? You brought up some great points, because I thought initially that the in-season tournament was a great idea. Like, the skeleton of it is a great idea, the bones,
Mhm.
but the meat of it has not necessarily been what I've expected, or it just hasn't. As a basketball fan, like I like watching basketball, and I'll watch the games. And you're right. You know, if I didn't know it was every Tuesday and Friday, I wouldn't know that I was literally watching what, you know what I mean? And I like your idea of saying, hey, let's concentrate these games over a couple week period, 2-3 week period, and let that be what the tournament is. And even more so, we see them going out here and trying out all these different types of jerseys, these weird different types of courts. Why not theme this thing? Like, I would have loved to see a group of like the Pistons, the Celtics, the Lakers, like some of these, and the Blazers or something, or the Bulls, some of these classic teams that we've seen them kind of do battle with throughout, honestly, the last several decades. You know, the Pistons have done battle with the Lakers in 2 different decades. 2 different teams won championships by facing the LA Lakers. You know, several teams, you know, even the Pistons of old, when they played the Cavaliers with LeBron James. I just thought, if they want to do something like that, you know, because we see like the Detroit Bad Boys jerseys that they brought out this year, and we see that court, I felt like that was a missed opportunity for them to be able to go and say, you know what, let's have themes to this tournament. Let's have some type of context to it. Kind of like how when the I think hockey does this, when they have the original 6 teams play each other and such, and they go and they put on their jerseys that kind of pay homage to those eras. I feel like that would be pretty awesome. It would start to kind of revel up a little bit of that old rivalry. And no matter where the teams are that year, whether they are kind of sunk, like we see our Pistons this year, or whether they're kind of riding high, like even like the Pacers, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because the Pistons and Pacers, you want to talk about rivalry, that, you know, as it relates to recent history, well, not recent, we'll just say recent history, I guess. I'm going to claim recent history. I know it's almost 20 years, but they've done battle, man. They've done battle. I don't think that there's been 2 teams in the last 2 decades that have had the type of like ire for each other that those 2 teams have had. And if they could do that and drum it up and have the video presentations before the games, kind of go through that type of history, go through
Mhm.
like the malice, go through what happened in those games, you know, I feel like that would ring a little bit more true and connect, honestly, different ages of NBA fans. You know, there are Pistons fans who kind of remember those times. There are Pistons fans who definitely were you know, a little bit older during those times. So someone like Jeff and I, we'd be able to connect a whole lot more on the going to work Pistons if they themed the jerseys out to fit that
Right.
perspective, allowed them
Yeah.
to play like the Cavs and the Pacers, the Nets, like some of those teams that they were doing battle with during that time, and have this. I feel like it would provide a story then too. There was no story to this. It was just, hey, this is your group. Like, how did you get that? Did you just shake them up in the lottery and just boom? Oh, well, that's Group A.
Right.
I
I mean,
just
the Knicks and the Celtics have to be in the same group. Have to be, for this to really have some
exactly.
sticky. They have to be in the same group. There's no way around that at all. So the Pacers, Cavs, Sixers, Hawks, Pistons, like there's no rhyme or reason to any of that. Even saying putting the Kings and Warriors in the same group, at least you know, okay, well, there was something from last year
Yeah.
with that, and I can kind of feel what they're doing. The rest of it is just kind of, where's the Lakers and the Suns? You figured they would be the 2 teams, to the 2 best teams in that grouping, but you put the Jazz, the Blazers, and the Grizzlies with them. Come on, I mean, that's, I don't know. It turned into, and this had been talked about too, is the point differential can't be the deciding factor in, and who was the who were the coaches that were arguing about point differential, and I think it was Steve Kerr and was it Jason Kidd? I don't remember, but there were two coaches, and one coach is saying, "Hey, I need to run up the score so that we can qualify for the thing." And it's like, bro, y'all winning by 20. Why are you trying? Is not enough. I think it's got to be 8. Because you gotta have a couple more chances to play. So if these are the two best teams in this group and we only play one time, well, now we're gonna get down to these stupid tiebreakers where now I gotta win by 10 and I gotta watch this score, and that's just too weird for me. And I think they're trying to get that from the soccer piece of it, but I think you've got to figure out some kind of other methodology to say here's the tiebreaker, because I just don't like point differential in that you're going to make somebody want to run up the score, and the way NBA people are set up, they're going to want to fight.
Mad too.
They're going to want to. They're going to want to fight.
Yeah, he got tossed out the game.
It's like, why are you doing this? Why? That's whatever. It is what it is, but I think it's a good first attempt. But there are plenty of things that I would change about it and say, because again, once you lose 2 games, you're out. You don't have a chance anymore.
Yeah.
After if you start 0-2, you're officially out. So why are we playing? And this whole thing, the whole way that they build it was supposed to be, everybody has a chance. Even the bad teams have a chance because this is just a small condensed little tournament. But if you lose those first 2, you don't care anymore. Are you trying to beat somebody else? I mean, for your regular season record, I guess, but it doesn't mean anything in that in-season tournament anymore after you lose those first 2.
Yeah, I just totally forgot that the Pistons were playing in it.
Exactly. That's
like,
exactly it. And it's just now you're going to roll out ugly courts for us to look at for these last couple of games in the tournament, and I'm not interested anymore. The courts have to. They were trying to take some risks with that, but they went too far. They were just put it in the color scheme of that alternate jersey that you're going to use. But these neon 80s type colors that don't match anything at all, tone it down a little bit. Give me a parquet floor. Give me the logo in the middle. You can do something around the edges, but for the floor to be all of that was just distracting.
Like, bro, can you imagine the Pistons and the Celtics playing on like that classic Celtic court, man, from like the 80s, the 90s? Like, that to me would have been fire. Or having the Lakers come here or the Bulls come here and play on that Detroit Bad Boys court. Now, I know they didn't play on that court, but that was the theme that they were riding with during those Bad Boy championship years. Like, I felt like that type of stuff would have been fire, man. Having the Lakers in like one of their classic jerseys. And you want to talk about all these new jerseys that they have to try and come up with to try and drum up some new sales and such, because if you don't, then people just buy their one jersey and they hold on to it. I felt like that would have been able to reinvigorate even jersey sales for the league, because I would have definitely gone out and would have bought a classic Detroit Pistons jersey tied into kind of this type of a theme. You know, there are some people who I know they collect jerseys, and the Pistons ones that just came out with the little championship, the new ones from Mitchell and Ness with the trophy on it. I got people who went out immediately and got those. And I feel like if they want to innovate, I'm glad that you stated that it's a good first attempt, because I don't think that it's something to necessarily say, oh, this is just bad. I don't think that. I think it's a good first attempt, and I hope that they improve upon it. And hopefully the NBA is listening to our show right now, because obviously these are the best ideas out there. So let me stop. Oh
yeah,
man.
let's get some Pistons in before I gotta run. Let's
but look,
let's
man,
pivot there.
17 straight losses. They got Bojan Bogdanovic back. I thought that they did some good things with Bojan back in the lineup. They weren't as strong defensively, and that's why, to me, ultimately they lost that game, but they scored very well. And you can see right away in the ways that Bojan Bogdanovic is going to help. Now, the one thing I would like to see more, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Bojan and Cade did not look like they played too many minutes together until the fourth quarter. And then it seemed like they didn't really run plays to get those guys buckets. Like the fourth quarter was their lowest scoring quarters for each of them in that game, which was just kind of where they played extensive minutes. So I don't know if Monty was trying to make sure that there was some scoring with that second unit for sure. I didn't know, or if he was just trying to ease Bojan back into things. But I can tell you this, as it relates to the positives, both of them scored over 20 points. Both of them can score on their own. People say, oh, when we get Bojan back, it's 3-point shooting. Bojan was a 3-level scorer in that game. Bojan created his own offense. Bojan, he was in the post, backing people down, scoring. Every time they were around, I was like, yo, why is it was like Killian and Bojan ran a pick and roll one time, and Bojan had Killian's smaller defender on him and went right to work in the paint. Called for the ball, boom, 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 turned around, got a foul. I was like, Bojan is just a professional scorer, not just a stand in the corner or catch and shoot type guy. He's an elite offensive player, man. The way he just kind of controlled things and he looked very cool, calm, and collected in his demeanor. They've missed Bojan Bogdanovic, and if they would have had him earlier in this season, I will say this, put this on record, man, they would have won some of those games that they lost because he's an absolutely phenomenal scorer, and I was kind of okay with his defense, man. He didn't really get blown by. He didn't look like barbecue chicken out there. He looked very, very serviceable, man, very serviceable. But I'm hoping that as they continue on getting healthy and such, that we see a lot more of Bojan and a lot more of Cade. And the thing that kind of I was banging my head on the wall with, Rod, with this team, it just seems so stagnant. Why is it? I'm sitting up next to shout out to Jeremy Allen of the Michigan Chronicle. He showed up to the last game, and we were talking all game about what we're seeing out there on the court with these Pistons and some things they can do to improve. Nobody cuts, bro. Bojan did literally the first cut of the game that we saw. Bojan, bro, off the bench. Everybody's standing around the three-point line, and that doesn't even seem like the offense that Monty Williams runs. He said he tries to get actions and dives and things like that, but everybody seemed almost to a fault, Stu a couple times, to just stand at the three-point line, and it got them in trouble. It got them in trouble, man. At that, to me, if there's one thing they clean up out of anything, I'm hoping it's that move, cut. We said after seeing Ivy play last year that we couldn't wait to see him this year with more players and playmakers on the team because maybe he can get those backdoor lobs, backdoor cuts, those rim runs, those dives. Then you get to this season, and I just don't see it, man. Am I tripping here? Because I'm just like, yo, somebody do something. Like when I saw Bojan actually cut and finish easily at the rim, it was funny, dude. Hold on. He cut right, and he jumped really, really hard, and he made the layup. It was like probably that much space between his hand and the rim, bro. Like his athleticism, you could see where it just stopped. But that's what makes me a little bit upset at this team that has some young athletic guys. Like since early in the season, Asar used to do it. But since then, I just haven't really seen it. I just haven't.
But you know what it's like? When you go to a gym and you see probably some maybe older teenagers or early 20s guys playing ball, and they're not really trained. They just go out and hoop, and they dribble all over the place, and they cross over for the purpose of crossing over, but not cross over to get to the rim and to get the advantage and use the advantage. It's a different, and then you go and you play with some older guys who are maybe 30, 35, 40 and up or whatever.
It just looks easy.
The style of the game is so much different because the older guys typically are going to know this is the place to cut. Here's a screen I got to set and I got to roll with it, or I got to take this guy out of the post to clear it out for this guy. Younger guys typically don't understand the nuance of the game in that way. And they're going to play, it's going to be a ton of ISO. If you play with somebody 35 and up, how much ISO do you see? Very little. Very little.
Bro, listen, they be in those open runs on Sunday mornings setting picks and things. And like, man, why are you setting screens for? Because it's basketball.
but that's how it works, and that's how it's supposed to work. So that is if you don't see people cutting and you don't see those little fundamentals of the game going on, then it's a hard watch and it's a hard play because you know it's going to come down to ISO. And if you're not running the play a certain way, okay, it's going to end up in this corner and this dude is going to shoot a three. That's pretty much how you know it's going to work. So if you're very predictable, and I know Monty said too, he has to get the ball in the hands of the right people to take those right shots. And Mike wrote about this yesterday, and it was exactly what we talked about last week. They are last in the league in 3-point attempts. You're not going to win in this NBA if you're not putting up a ton of threes and hitting a decent percentage of them. So now they're 29th in 3-point makes and 3-point attempts, and 25th in 3-point percentage. You're not going to win that way. That's
I'm not even percentage dropped since the last time we talked about it, because before we were like, we'll take it as long as the percentage was decent. But since then, 25th, that's I have to go back and look at the tapes, but that I know is a lot further down the list than when we started this thing. And you're right, because what compounds the issues is a little bit about what Mike wrote and a little bit about how we started this aspect of the conversation. You can't not be taking the threes, but standing out there and also not cutting. Those are you're just working against yourself, man. Like nobody even takes that 1-2 dribbles into the mid-range and makes a defender commit. Like they're not even doing that.
What does that create when you don't cut and you don't do all of that other stuff? It creates a contested three. So a three is cool, but a contested three is the worst. Everybody knows that. The worst kind of three? No. You do not want contested threes, and you're only getting 33s per game. 33s? That's 7.5 a quarter.
In this NBA, no.
Do you know 7.5 3-point attempts per quarter? Come on.
That's not going to work in this NBA, not at all. And I'm at least glad to be hearing Monty saying the right things. And he continues to stop just shy of putting it completely on his team. He continues to talk about what he needs to do better. Is a phrase that I hear him say a lot is "that's on me." And I know that fans and observers are out there, they're tired of hearing that, but I think that there's a lot more weight that needs to be put on what you stated. This is a young team, and Troy Weaver said it right after Asar and Marcus's draft press conference in the media scrum. And he stated some of these guys are going to have to learn the nuance. He was like, look, a lot of them are ready to play NBA defense, but on offense, they're going to have to learn the nuances of the game. And there are times where you see Asar kind of in a space where he should have cut and then come out into another position. But since he didn't, then all of a sudden it's kind of congested in that area. And honestly, with this new NBA and people defending you full court, Monty talked about this yesterday as well, the Pistons are not getting up into their offense until 17 seconds on the clock, which is an issue for them, man. They're kind of getting up there, and then that leads even more into this kind of contested 3-point shot. What another thing I noticed is it doesn't seem like they know how to kind of get into their offense, or how to effectively, when they break off from that offense, how to effectively go into like their second or their third options, which is what I believe is creating a lot of these contested ISO and one-on-ones, these contested 3-point shots. Cade is out there, man. Even Killian. Somebody was like, stop running around the floor, Killian. There was a play where he kept running. He ran into the paint, ran back out, ran back into the paint, was looking around, ran back out. And the thing I noticed is that's when I started realizing, like, nobody's cutting. Killian is a playmaker. And he needs to, and this is why it's important for him to be able to know how to finish. And he's playing a little bit more physical. He did that in the last game. But if nobody's cutting and everybody's just sitting around waiting for a contested 3-point shot, it's going to continue to look exactly how it looked. And that's what I think was so great about Bojan coming back, because he's one of those players that can kind of bust that. You know what I mean? If it's 7-8 seconds left on the shot clock, honestly, Bojan Bogdanovic is the person that I feel the most comfortable with having the ball in his hands in that type of a situation, even more so than Cade Cunningham at this point, because of the type of attention that he draws. He just continues to draw double and triple teams time after time after time. Bojan Bogdanovic, I know it's going to bring a little bit to kind of ease that from Cade Cunningham, and I'm hoping the Pistons soon get Monte Morris here because, like I said, the little bit that I saw in that Cleveland Cavaliers game, I really, really, really liked about the offense that Cade and Bojan were able to run. I'm hoping they get more time together, but Monty he didn't want to lower expectations for this team, but he did say that, coming into this thing, he did not believe that they were a play-in team yet, but he thought that they were much better than they've shown, and he still thinks that. He said, I've seen this team at the beginning of the season. I saw this team through training camp. I've seen this team in practice. I've seen them when they were 2-1, and that's who I believe that we are more like. I've seen their ceiling, and that's why he said in the beginning of the year, this is your ceiling. This is what I'm going to expect you guys to be able to get to game after game after game. And so when they hit this slump, he said, and Bojan kind of stated the same thing too, that he's been there before. But he knows that this is not a team that throws in the towel. There's no red flags on this team. If he thought that there were, he said that he would definitely go to Troy and say something needs to be done. But he truly believes that this team is in a position where they are learning from their mistakes and that they're going to be a team that's much better for it in the second half. Look, whether you believe that, I believe that, or you people out there believe that, this is what Monty Williams believes. And honestly, that team is still continuing to work. The parts of practice we're able to hear and the parts of practice that we're able to see, they're going all out. They're staying after practice. They're practicing on the things that they are not as efficient on. And I see them trying and trying and trying to get this stuff right. At the very least, that's what we want, because I feel like we've heard some kind of counter-productive reports in the past about previous Pistons teams who weren't as good, maybe not taking things as serious. Stan Van Gundy was not shy about talking about that type of stuff and about who needs to work harder and all of that. Monty Williams was measured and very metered in his comments yesterday, but he stated, look, this team is going to get it right. He said, we're going to fix this thing and it is going to turn around. And honestly, I feel that.
When. Now, I mean, and that's a fan question. When is we are what, 20 games into this thing? And is there very much difference in the losses? All the losses kind of look the same.
Yeah.
There's not much that says, okay, well, they fought really hard in this one and they lost on a buzzer beater. It just looks, people tell me they go to games and I'm like, ooh, that's okay. How'd you like it? Well, they're bad. The court product is bad, and I'm so serious. Somebody told me he went to a game, but he had tickets to the one of the clubs, and so he was able to watch the game from the club. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. If you didn't even stay in your seat during the third quarter, fourth quarter, whatever, to watch the game, and you were just in the club partaking of the food and stuff. But that's where it is it's not a fun watch for some people to do. And let me finish this thought.
Yeah.
So Pistons shoot 33s a game, almost the worst in the league, and they shoot 62s. So it's 2-to-1 ratio of 2s to 3s. That's we all know in the NBA that is not going to do it. No. So I look the other way. The Mavericks lead the league with 43 three-point attempts.
Wow.
43. That's 13 more. So what do they shoot on their 43 attempts? 37%. That's, hey, you can do something with that. So how many twos do they shoot? 48. So 43 threes, 48 twos. That's a balance. And you can win with that because you know that you're some of those threes are going to fall. If you're shooting 37% as a team, you're going to be all right. Yeah. You're going to make it work. That's somewhere around the middle of the league. That's 12th in the league. But those number of twos are not we're trading threes for twos and at some point. But the other side of it is, in Dallas's case, 12 turnovers a game. Leads the league in fewest turnovers. Yeah. And Dallas is not tearing up the league and they don't have a pristine record. They're 11-8. But that shows you what those numbers have to start looking like for the Pistons to start turning things around is that you
Yeah,
cannot shoot 33s a game and expect to win.
that's deep,
It's
bro.
just not going to happen that way. And
That's
this is
that's
a
really
big enough
deep.
sample size. But let's go back and say, why is it only 30? Because Bogey's out, because Joe Harris is out,
Even
because
Monte.
Monte Morris is out, and you were missing Livers too. So all of those things kind of go together, and you can see they had to play to the roster that they had. They don't want Asar throwing up a bunch of threes, obviously. So what
Nope.
did how many threes did Bogey shoot in his first game back? 10. That's going to drive that number right back up to where you want it to be. And that's just going to take some time for that to kick in. But that's how much you missed Bogey, is that's 10 threes that are off the table because he's not in your lineup. And let me see how many threes they shot as a team in that game. But again, that's showing you that they are playing a little. They only got 33s up, so it's still. But the distribution, whoever was shooting them before, I'd much rather have Bogey shooting those threes because
Yeah,
history says those numbers are going to balance out.
yeah, and I'm hoping that with the lineups and with Bojan back into the lineup, Monty said that there were some players who thought that they might be spending time in the G League who wound up playing 20 to 30 minutes a night for this squad. And with Bojan back, he's able to kind of release some of those guys' minutes just a little bit and be able to bring a little bit more balance to the lineup. And he started to mention things like there's going to be, Bojan might be starting some games and Stewart might not be, just depending on the matchups and the lineups and who they're facing that night. And one of the things he talked about as well is getting Cade more off ball, like we've heard all season, along with Bojan Bogdanovic, and playing with the guards, Killian, Jaden Ivey, or Marcus Sasser bringing the ball up the court. And what that creates is the ability to have now two good catch and shoot 3-point shooters on your wings who can also produce if they have to turn into ISO players or drive or anything of that nature. I'm hoping that they start to manufacture more of that so that this number can get back up. I want to see Cade shooting more catch and shoot threes. I just do. He's until Bojan got back, I was just sitting here looking at just the from a eye test. Other than when Sasser's on, Cade just seemed to be the best catch and shoot 3-point shooter on this team, which is weird to say because he's a guy that we initially thought was going to have to be and was primed to be the point guard of the future. This season, as it relates to an assessment of everything that Troy said he was going to be able to do, it almost makes me believe that like Devin Booker needed CP3, maybe Cade Cunningham, and for the betterment of this offense, they need a good, solid point guard next to him as well, because we all know that ball handlers are interchangeable. They're switchable, so it's not like he wouldn't get his time on ball. But I'm hoping to see more sets that have Killian, Jaden Ivey, or Sasser running the point, running the offense a little bit, putting Cade and Bojan out on these wings and letting them be the ones to jack up those shots rather than Stu going and potentially putting up 7, 8, 9 3-point attempts at a lower percentage because it's lower than what it was to start the season. So I did want to ask you one question, man, before we kind of wrap things up. The Pistons have a lot of cap space coming up, and no matter what anyone thinks, Troy Weaver has set this thing up for himself quite well. A lot of people don't think he should get the opportunity to spend the cap space because they don't believe that he's made the correct moves up to this point. And one place where our level is, hey, if you're going to go out there and sign the vets that are supposed to help this team kind of learn how to play, learn how to win, learn how to develop now, you got to make sure that those guys are healthy. But to this point, he hasn't made a splash yet because it was on purpose. He hasn't gone out and destined to make a splash yet. He wanted to be able to stock this team with young talent, get a core, and then begin to maneuver and work after that. And he admitted that the season last year where Cade missed the whole year, they lost the ability to assess who this squad was. Cade, I'm going to say it again, hasn't really played with this team. He didn't get to really play with Bojan, Duren, or Ivy. It was 12 games last year, and none of those players were what they are right now. Ivy and Duren they grew. They weren't the same players. And Marcus Sasser and Asar Thompson are new. They're just new. So he hasn't really played with this core a lot. Stewart was the only one, and Stu now is playing a completely different role than he played when Cade was healthy. So he hasn't played with too many people. I believe that you're going to have to get this chemistry thing going. And that's why I'm glad they took this year to assess what's going on. They were going to try and do that last season. But after assessing, after kind of passing up on people like Cam Johnson and Kyle Kuzma, I wanted to get your thoughts on OG Anunoby, free agent this year, unrestricted. And that seems to be a name that a lot of people are saying would fit very, very well on this Pistons team. But I wanted to be able to get your thoughts on that. I still am holding out hope that there is some type of deal in the works to be able to bring Jeremy Grant back here because I think he'd be a perfect fit on this team. But talk to me, man, about OG Anunoby.
I think you got to go do something. You just OG is good. I think you got to go out there and make the phone call on Zach LaVine. That is the level of player that you need to go and get.
Just a flat out score.
Just a
Hey, he'll put up 7.5 threes in a quarter.
By himself. And if you don't go there, I can listen to DeMar DeRozan because he's going to have more of that vet presence that you probably need on this team. But you got to go get a scorer, a 20-point a game scorer, whether you're keeping Bogey or not. When you watch other teams that have multiple scorers and multiple options that you can depend on every time down the court, it just shows you what the Pistons don't quite have just yet because their guys have not developed that way. Zach LaVine is very risky in the sense that he's been injury prone in his career, but that dude is a scorer. He is a professional scorer.
Yep.
And every time the Pistons play him, that dude is like, I'm putting up 40. If I'm not putting up 40, I'm putting up 39. That he wants to rip out your heart and go out and put up a ton of points.
I would love it because it would ease so much of the attention that's on Cade Cunningham instantly. Because if you're going to double and triple team Cade with Zach LaVine here, I feel like he'd find a way to stay healthy, man. All that attention instantly. The same effect that I felt like Jeremy Grant when he started to get going. Now, I know defenses weren't playing Cade the same way, but they really could not afford to leave Jeremy Grant either. If they were going to focus on Cade, then Jeremy Grant was somebody who was out there getting buckets, and he's nowhere near the type of score, the level of score, that pure gasoline type score that Zach LaVine is. At first, when Zach LaVine's name came up as potential to be traded, I was a little bit like, I don't know, but as we've continued to see this team struggle shooting the three, struggle scoring, struggle manufacturing offense, Cade needs an absolute scorer on his team, especially with the way that he likes to start games, kind of searching out, probing, passing to his teammates. And the thing I love, Zach LaVine actually cuts. He's not just a perimeter player. He will get busy. He will get into the mid-range. He'll get to the rack. And Rod, I got to agree with you, man. I got to agree with you. Like, I want to see something like that happen for the Detroit Pistons.
You need an all-star level player. And not even all-star level. You need an all-star, period. Full stop, all-star. And if you're not going to go get those guys in free agency, if it's too difficult and they're not going to come, then you just got to trade for them. And what I don't know what the asking price is, but I'm making the call to see if he's available and what it would take. And if it takes something like 2 of your core guys or 3 of your core guys in a pick, or you bring another team in with some draft picks to help make this happen, then you do what you got to do, because it's this team can come together and be something in 2 years. You don't have 2 years. I think you're going to start losing the fan base if you have to wait that long to make it happen. And I'm not saying Troy Weaver's on the hot seat. And I know people have kind of thrown that around.
You're talking on something that touches back to last week that I think people misunderstood. When I stated that the Rockets' moves weren't championship caliber, yes, I know that their moves are to help their young core win. They have the luxury to do that because they've been better more recent than us. They have the opportunity to go out there and say, you know what, Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks might not be here when we're ready to say, let's gear up for our championship run. Let's go out there and make our splashes. The Pistons are no longer in a position to say, well, let's just go do a Fred VanVleet and a Dylan Brooks type of a deal. They're not in that type of position. Like you said, if this team, you said they need 2 years, but they still don't even have that time. This thing is stretching on into almost 2 decades of mediocre basketball. And when mediocre basketball to bad basketball, when mediocre basketball goes over 10 years, you just chalk that up to it's now bad basketball. That's just what it is, man. And that's what I was trying to get across, because the Houston fans, man, they got a hold of our last podcast. And it's like we stated the same things. We're like, well, these moves aren't meant to be championship caliber. I'm like, exactly. That's exactly the point. You all have the opportunity to do things that the Pistons don't have the time to do. They might have the opportunity, but they do not have that time. You want to talk about losing a complete generation of kids who went from birth to college now. You know, we're wondering why the arena fills up with Warriors fans right now. It's because what have these kids been given to actually cheer for? I was talking to my guy Griffin over here, one of our sales guys. He was like, man, the Pistons have been so bad in my lifetime that, yeah, I love the Blake Griffin team. And I was like, oh, I feel so bad for you.
Yeah,
I feel bad for you.
That's no good.
It's like the Pistons have to do something. They have to accelerate things right now. They have to go make a splash. Houston could say, hey, well, let's kick this down the road. Let's put Cam Whitmore in the G League. Let's cut some of the minutes of the young guys. We don't have the opportunity to do that. We don't have the time to do that. There's people even in the media who are saying, man, they got to do something, man, because what else are you supposed to say if they don't? We don't want to say that the seat is going to be warming or hot or bursting into flames, but what are you supposed to say if they come back after this offseason? You going into the next season, and the deals are on the level of Fred VanVleet, which is like a half a star, and Dylan Brooks, which is like role player supreme. We've done that already with Monty and Bojan. And if it doesn't work out, you can't just keep doing that.
Yeah, so you got to push the chips in at some point. And if it's not Zach LaVine, it's got to be somebody on that level.
You got to go out there and make it happen.
When you watch Indiana and you see Tyrese Halliburton is at that level, when you watch Sacramento and you see where they are with young players, they don't have a veteran all-star type player. They built it from the ground up, and that's where the Pistons got to go. I got to run, but yeah, man, that's kind of where we are on that.
Well, hey guys, thank you for tapping in. My name is Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid. You've been watching the Woodward Pistons podcast on the Woodward Sports Network. We're gonna get the legend here drum rolled out. Hey yo! Shout out and thank you to the legend Detroit News Rod Beard, brother. Have a good and a blessed day. Thank you as always.
Excellent. All right, bro.
Till next time, you all.